Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness, and I'm wearing a shirt. According to the newest study, I think this is actually a tank top. Most people, whenever they reference studies, no matter what they're talking about, what is it going to be? The title, the abstract, the conclusion, the stuff that you can read at the top. Nobody's actually going to go down and look at all of the methods used to get these findings, even if the study group was a total of 20 people, so-called advanced bodybuilders, who have never competed with a 1-rep max on the bench press of 185 pounds. But the topic in question is training volume. Mike Mentzer, even though he's been gone for a while now, his really low volume philosophy is always making waves. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that he really pushes the intensity, and a lot of commercial gym schmucks, as we call them here, they play hopscotch on the machines, they coast through their workouts, they really don't put legit effort into anything they do, and they might think that they are, but they're not. Then they find Mentzer and they think, oh wow. They start to push themselves and they start to grow and they say, oh, well, it's the fact that I'm doing such low volume, that's what's getting the results. When it's really the fact that they're actually pushing themselves close to failure for the first time in their lives. I have done my own research, my own field tests, and I have some findings to report to you in terms of how my progress and gains have been affected from changing my volume over the past number of months. On the topic of change though, something a lot of you guys need to change is the fact that you wear the same boring clothes to the gym and out every single week. That's why I've partnered with Kinetic Kings, my new go-to provider for all things streetwear. Every one of their products is made directly in the USA, right out of California. The shorts ride roughly thigh height, so if you're a guy that doesn't skip legs, you can show off your quads. And their shirts run oversized, so they make perfect pump covers. Kinetic Kings is rapidly rising in popularity, and a lot of their merch sells out fast. So be sure to sign up for their messaging list. If anything you're looking for is currently sold out, you'll be notified once it comes back in stock. If you guys are looking to give them a try and up your gym swag, you can use code MK for 10% off your order on their website, kinetickings.com. So what prompted me to make this video was this post from Paul Carter on Instagram, but he made a summary of this article on PubMed. Dose-response relationship between weekly resistance training volume and increases in muscle mass, a systemic review and meta-analysis. So props to him for saving us time. He says, so the meta-analysis that looked at volume across 18 different studies shows that volumes in higher amounts in the training week stimulate more growth. Since then, that was 2017, there's been even more studies done on volume tiers, and here's what happens when you meta-regress all of it and include all of the relevant studies and then separate them in capitals by rest periods between sets. I was once a certified personal trainer, which by the way, that means absolutely nothing in terms of actually knowing what you're talking about, from 2 different organizations. And in those textbooks, you're going to see over and over that the so-called hypertrophy rest range is only 30 to 60 seconds. Anybody with practical experience can tell you that resting longer is going to help you build more muscle because you can replicate your strength across sets even better. But this whole idea that really short rest periods are somehow better for muscle growth, I think stems from the old bodybuilding myth that the pump is the end-all be-all of training, right? So if you rest for 30 seconds, you do a set of curls, put it down, pace around a little bit, pick it back up, do more curls, you're going to feel more of a pump, you're going to have more blood rushing to your biceps, but that does not tangibly mean anything. The pump is not an indicator of an effective workout, it's not going to indicate that you've prompted growth. Guys, you could go stand in the mirror and flex your biceps for 5 straight minutes, you're going to get a bicep pump. Are they going to grow from that? No. This applies to any muscle group. It comes down to progressively overloading with a sufficient intensity threshold through a consistent range of motion on the given exercises. And I think that fixation on the pump is one of the reasons why the high volume guys say what they say. We'll return to that soon. But back to this post. Short rest periods under 2 minutes. 9 studies had trained and untrained subjects. With short rest intervals, hypertrophy increased with increasing volume up to 15 to 16 sets per session, which is completely ridiculous. If you look at that number in a single workout and think, oh, that's not a lot, you're delusional, albeit with diminishing returns. This is for both trained and untrained. Long rest periods, 2 minutes or more, with trained and untrained, also had 9 studies. With long rest intervals, gains level off or maybe even regress beyond an average of 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per session. That is a very big difference. Then he says, so a 2 to 3 minutes rest, 6 sets for a muscle in a session is high volume. But let's double that, say he does 2 sessions a week at 6 sets. That comes out to 12 sets for a given muscle group per week. Now this is going to lead us into the 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. Even a lot of these science-based guys, man, these dudes got PhDs, master's degrees, all this stuff. They just say, oh yeah, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. That is a very broad range. That is legitimately double from the low end to the high end. I would even say that 8 sets a week is absolutely going to grow you muscle. It's not like you have to just get to 10. Here's a metaphor I thought of, right? 10 to 20, that is double. That's basically like saying, hey, the speed limit in this area right here, this residential street, is 20 to 40. Of course, you're going to look at that and you're going to push 40. That's what everybody does with the 10 to 20 sets per week thing. They see 10 to 20, of course your mind automatically goes to the higher number, but it's a relatively small street. And that's really what it's like with your recovery. We have a finite amount of recovery that we can handle on a regular basis, particularly naturals without chemical assistance. You push that speed limit too much, there's a good chance that you're going to wreck. If you're doing legitimately hard exercises, bro, there is no chance you're doing up to 20 sets per muscle group on a weekly basis. I know guys are gonna come in the comments and say, oh, I do that, bro, and they're gonna have no evidence of these claims. Stop lying to yourselves, please. But here's how I break it down. So if you're down to like 4 total sets per week per muscle group, I think that's too low. You get up to 8, 9, 10. If you think you cannot grow considerable amounts of muscle mass on 8 hard sets a week, you just don't have experience. I don't know how else to say it to you. A lot of the stuff that I program in the plans I have on my website is gonna be around 10 sets per week, give or take. Maybe a little bit more for the mirror muscles guys like to chase after. But in my opinion, 10 to 12, even if you're pretty experienced guys, you really don't need to go beyond that. If you are really hitting that threshold and progressively overloading, getting stronger, don't hit me with this bullcrap, oh well, size and strength are totally different, I only train for hypertrophy, not strength. You have to get stronger to get bigger, and vice versa, guys. I'm gonna be on this hill to the day I die, because these guys always want to act like there's this huge difference. They are symbiotic. You get stronger, even if it's higher reps, and then you get bigger, that helps you get stronger. They work together. Everybody unanimously agrees that you need to progressively overload to build muscle, and then they'll say, oh, strength doesn't matter. You ready for this? What is progressive overload? It's getting stronger. There's this really goofy notion in the hypertrophy and aesthetics community that strength only refers to powerlifting 1 rep maxes, but back to the chart, if we're up to 14, 15, 16 sets per week, to me this is excessive. If you cannot grow sufficiently at 10 to 12, there's a fundamental problem with your training and your recovery. It's really that simple. And then going back to the end of Paul's post, he says, with longer rest periods, volume tiers technically look like this on a session-by-session basis, not weekly. 1 to 2 sets per muscle group on a session is low, 3 to 4 is moderate, and 5 or more is high. And then he says the most effective volume is where progressive overload is maximized. So once again, let's assume for the sake of argument we're doing each muscle group 2 times a week, like on a good PPL bra. 1 to 2 times 2, the top end of that is 4. Like he says low, I think that's definitely too low. 3 to 4 is moderate, let's use the high end of that, go to 8. Like I just said, you can definitely grow using 8. And then 5 plus is high. 5 times 2 is 10, that's a sweet spot. You could even do 6, that is 12 per week. 7 or more, I think that's when it gets too heavy. But a lot of people, you'll see online, they do 15 to 16 sets per muscle group per week, and then they're going to add more on top of that. So that is a quick synopsis of the research. Now I'm going to give you my own anecdote. And the anecdote I have too from training a number of people for a long time. But I've been back on the bulk train for a while now, and things are going relatively smoothly. So I was doing roughly the same amount of volume the last time I was bulking, which was 2021 into early 2022. I've said in the past that the more experienced you get, the more volume that you could benefit from. I think that is true depending on the muscle group, primarily weak points. For a lot of guys, this could include arms, so maybe you have like a light arm day. And looking back at my old training logs from my previous bulk into this one, I'm actually doing less volume on certain muscle groups now than I was then. And I'm bigger and stronger now than I was then. Now, some people might chalk that up to, oh, you're just bulking, that's why that's happening. Obviously, the bulk is a big factor in this, guys. But that said, if we want to use the conventional wisdom, right, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, the more experienced you get, the more volume you need. In my experience, I don't think that really holds up, at least ironclad. It's not as straightforward as you may think. And that leads us onto the topic of recovery, which gets tons and tons of lip service in the lifting space, but in terms of how most people, especially really eager beginners, apply it, it is nowhere close to how they need to. So ask any lifter on the internet what they need to do to build muscle. Even if they're completely new to the gym, they're gonna tell you, eat a lot of protein, get a lot of sleep. Checks out, that is correct. But recovery is much more than just that, guys. Even if you are sleeping 8-9 hours a night, even if you have the most nutrient-dense diet on the planet Earth, even if you have all these other things going in your favor, if you have no job and you just go to the gym and go home and can just relax for the entire day, if you're doing too much volume in general, especially for prolonged periods of time, also known as overreaching, you're going to limit how much muscle your body can grow.
I mean, basic.
This is basic stuff, guys. Everybody knows this now, at least I hope they do. You don't build muscle in the gym working out. You build muscle resting and recovering outside of the gym. And here's what I find really funny about the whole volume discussion. I saw this in the gym the other day. I was watching these two guys. I think they were actual IFBB pros, or very close to it if not, because they were absolutely gigantic. But they were doing a typical leg day, and they're over on the hack squat, then they do the pendulum squat, they do the V-squat machine, they have all these things they're doing. Everybody can agree that you do not need to do that much volume in the first place, and if you're not very chemically enhanced, that much volume is going to bury your recovery. Everybody agrees on that. But then when it comes to the guys that claim natural, even if they're doing high volume themselves, some of these natural guys on here are doing more or less the same stuff as a lot of these IFBB pros or aesthetics bras on Instagram and TikTok. They're doing up to 20 sets a week, they're in the gym 6-7 days a week. This training looks suspiciously like the dreaded IFBB pros and the juice heads that a lot of the natural community always vilify. And you're like, but this guy trains oddly similar to how they train, but all of a sudden it's different for them. Oh, well, you see, bro, he's just built different, bro. Okay, in my experience, there are way less people that can handle really high volume training and recover and make consistent gains than those who can do the same with more moderate volume training. And this is going to come down a lot to exercise selection too, in your own understanding and grasp of training variables. But the vast majority of people consuming fitness content are novices. They don't understand this stuff. So they just go online and they see a new exercise on TikTok, gotta do that. New optimal thing on YouTube, gotta do that. Oh, a new trending thing on Instagram, gotta do that. And they just mishmash all of this stuff together, and they say, oh, well, the science guy said up to 20 sets per week is fine, and they're gonna be in the gym, slaving away, barely seeing progress, and exhausting themselves. And with all of that said too, the last thing I thought about here, who has the time to do all of this stuff in the gym? That's what I really think about, man. I understand a lot of you guys are 16, 18, 20, you're in high school or college right now, especially if you're in college, man, and you can like walk to your campus rec center. You got all the time in the world, right? You have a 5-page essay that you're going to put off until the night before. You have some assignments here and there, but college in the grand scheme of things, guys, especially once you graduate, you're going to look back and realize like, wow, I really did not work that hard. Those of you guys who are in STEM, you're actually working pretty hard. The rest of you, you're not. Y'all can have ChatGPT write entire essays for you at this point. But once you get to the real world and have any semblance of a normal job, let alone a wife or a family or other obligations, I really do not understand how a lot of you guys can get to the gym so much, let alone do so much volume. And I would almost get the point of that if it really gave you a lot of muscle growth and strength benefits, but it doesn't. Even though you think that you're enhancing your gains, you're actually doing the opposite. So I would challenge you to do this. If you're somebody right now who does a bunch of high volume and you're just like, oh, I have to do every exercise, bro, and I have to do this thing I saw, lower your volume a bit. Taper things down. Aim for 10 to 12 sets per week per muscle group. I know mentally you're like having an aneurysm. You can't even possibly comprehend that, but I'm gonna have to take out the iliac fiber pull down, bro. Guys, you don't need to do the iliac fiber pull down to get a big back. You don't need to do the special chest press around fly thing to get a big chest. You don't need to do the sissy squat plat style to get big legs. I know that might be contrary to what a lot of you have seen online, but you don't have to do that. Pick a core handful of exercises for each muscle group, hammer those for a while, get stronger at them, progressively overload on them. Keep a training log if you don't. I mean, God forbid, if you're one of these just mindless pump junkie guys, I just pick a weight and rep it out, bro. God help you. So if you're spending a lot of time in the gym right now, and especially if you're not making nearly the progress you've been led to believe that you would, I would encourage you to try out moderate volume training. Really push yourself hard, within reason of course. If you guys want programs that lay all of this out in full detail, with full guides and explanations, you can check revivalfitness.org/programs, 3, 4, 5, and yes, even a 6-day PPL. It's really 5 days a week the way I design it. All available on the website, guys. Numerous things come included. If you want to get everything laid out for you, check it out down below. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Shout out, as always, to the Patreon supporters and the channel members. You can get in contact with me down below for direct conversation about your own training and eating, as well as joining the Discord server. And I will catch you guys next time.